Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, however you're watching, wherever you're watching, however you listen, wherever you listen. It's the Bet Online Salute to Troy podcast, and the tripod is here. The tripod is back, and ladies and gentlemen, pay close attention. It looks like we're going to get 3 bearded bandits. Me and Ryan talked about this. We said Jamal's going to end up growing a beard, and it is coming. The bearded bandits are here. We got Jamal. We got Ryan.
And it looks great.
Yeah, it's coming in, Jamal. Keep it. Just trim it up. You know what I mean?
Thank you. This is sort of 5 days old right here. 5-6 days. You know,
that's not bad.
Yeah.
You're once you make it through that part, you're gonna want to keep it.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Yeah.
How are you doing? How's life? Your what did they say during COVID? Your new normal. How's your new normal?
Oh, very, very Gen Z of you, Coach. That's a great phrase right there. I love that. Oh man, doing well, guys. Enjoying the bliss of fatherhood, as both of you can certainly relate to. We're 7 days in, and first rough night last night. As we talked about. So first night where it was kind of like no sleep last night, but still riding the high. So it's all great stuff.
Right, how you doing?
Good, doing well. I try to stay optimistic, but Jamal, that's the first of many rough nights, unfortunately.
There it is. I know. It's all good. It's all good.
I have some friends that have gotten lucky, and their kids sleep all through the night from like 2 months on. Like I was not that lucky, but hopefully I can be pessimistic, and then it ends up you being that guy that she just sleeps great. So
I didn't get lucky until we did the transition. After we did the transition, we made it through the cry it out for 3 days, and then after that, like I said, he'll sleep through the night. He's in bed right now, and he won't wake up until like 5:45, 6 o'clock. And then baby girl, she's actually started to sleep through the night now. So it's time to evict her ass up out of my room. So I can't
remember if I told you guys this, but we were screwed because Mia, before she had her heart surgery at like 6 months. So before that, like they said, you can't let her like cry for long periods of time. It's too much stress on her heart.
Oh, wow.
So we literally couldn't do the cry it out. And so after 6 months of that, then it's like, well, all right, well, I can do whatever I want and get what I want. So then it was just so hard to break her out of that. So we were kind of set up for failure.
Things happen. So Jamal, just hang in there. You never know what you're going to get. It's a flip.
No, man, I'm excited. She's gone on me a little bit. That's what sort of my parents have said, where she's a very like fussy eater. So she's like a snacker. She doesn't like, so it's just all a little bit of snacking and then a little bit of sleeping. I mean, she might as well be living in Spain right now, but we just got to kind of transition it to more of a US based schedule. So
topless and siestas. She's all about topless and siestas.
Exactly. You just dabble with the snacks. You take a little afternoon nap. You come back. Little intermittent fasting. So it's all good stuff.
Maybe we just need to bring the Spain and Italian lifestyle to the U.S. Maybe it's the
there
opposite.
You go. Now see that's the best thing Ryan has said. All year right there. That was it right there.
I like that. Good.
All right. Well, on to what we're here for instead of being a dad's club. The Trojans head to land of 1,000 Lakes, former home of the Los Angeles Lakers. Just in case people didn't know that. That's why they're called the Lakers. Little tidbit.
Fun fact.
Play the Minnesota Golden Gophers. And we were talking offline, and I feel like the Minnesota Golden Gophers is SC's new Oregon State, Arizona State, right? And when I say that, I say it as a part of they're not the best team in the world. They're not everybody that the national media is going to talk about, and a lot of people sleep on them, but they're a very tough team to beat. You're going to leave with a black eye, right? And those games are good for people, and I'm going to mention the phrase that I like to mention, and the madman hates when I say this. This is going to be a true battle test that we're probably going to go through here. And when I say battle test, I mean...
Why would I hate that?
Because every time I say, you're like, they haven't been battle tested. They played Arizona. They played Arizona State. And these are the games I say this is a battle test because you're going to get a punch in the mouth from an unexpected competitor. And the question is, how are you going to react and how are you going to come through it? PJ Fleck does a very good job coaching. I'm a big PJ Fleck fan. I think what he's put together there is very good. I'm pretty sure Jamal and Thrill hate PJ Fleck at this moment, but I think that he has put together a very good squad. The question is, are they good enough to compete with SC? Testing wise, I will say this before I kick it around to you guys. Testing wise, this is a very big test for USC. You know what I mean? This is a test to show, are they an elite talent? Or are they just better than the average? Are they above average? Are they very good? Or are they superior? This is one of those games that you have to prove. They come out, they drop 42. This is a Utah State game. Is like, all right, we need to start talking about these dudes being at the top tier. Or they come out and they leave and they covered 31-16 like they did against Wisconsin. It's like, okay, they're a very good team. It's a dogfight. They're just above average, right? They lose. This is a different conversation we have to have. But these are the things we have to look at. This is a very good measuring stick game for the Trojans. I'll go to Madman. Madman, what are your thoughts about the games this week?
Yeah, Coach. It's an interesting game. I think that Minnesota, it's maybe perhaps the most unknown or weird sort of preparation for a game that USC may have this season. When you just look at Minnesota's body of work over 5 games, they sort of had the first game of the season. They lost 19-17 to North Carolina. North Carolina ended up losing 70-50 at home to James Madison. So, what does that mean? Of only scoring 17, only giving up 19 to a team like that. Then they come back. They have 2 games against subpar competition, Nevada, Rhode Island. They have a combined shutout. They go kind of combined 75-0 in those 2 games. So, they did what they were supposed to do. Then they followed that up with a game against Iowa where it was competitive in the first half, and they just kind of got boat raced in the second half of that game and lost 31-14. And then you had this game against Michigan where through 3 quarters it was 24-3, and then they just kind of came to life in that fourth quarter with a couple of drives, and then obviously there was kind of that controversial onside kick at the end. So I don't really know what to make of this team right now through 5 games. It's sort of a combination of some interesting performances, some puzzling performances. And so I think in that regard, it's a dangerous game because you just don't know what you're going to get from this team moving forward. And I think that's where the odds makers have been relatively conservative here at 9.5. I mean, considering that SC was a 15.5 point favorite against Wisconsin, only 9.5 point favorite here against Minnesota. Part of that is going on the road to Minnesota for the first time in over a decade. But I think there's also a little bit of an unknown element to the Golden Gophers that I think, Coach, to your point, makes them dangerous. The 2 things that kind of stand out to me, one is quarterback Max Brosmer. This guy's a senior, 4 or 5 years in the program. He's off to a little bit of a slow start this year, but he's coming off of back-to-back 3,000-yard seasons over the last 2 years, back-to-back seasons of 25-plus touchdowns. So you've got a guy very experienced in this system that certainly is capable of playing really well over a 4-quarter period if given the right circumstances. And then they've got a bell cow in Darius Jackson, their lead running back, 215 pounds. Again, one of those bigger Big Ten backs, 260 yards, 5 touchdowns on the course of the season. So I think it's going to be a little bit more of the same of kind of ground and pound and then play action with Brosmer to some of his outside weapons like Jackson and Spencer. But we just haven't seen Minnesota put a whole game together, maybe even a whole half together over the course of this season. So there's a lot of unknown. And I think this is one of those games where if you're USC, you want to come in with the right mentality. I think it's really important here to establish dominance early. You want to kind of jump out 7-0, 10-0, 14-3, and really kind of set that tone, both offensively and defensively. This is one of those games, I think, if you let them hang around, given that it's on the road, given they're a team that's still finding themselves, you can create a complicated situation for yourself in the second half. So I think that first 15 minutes is going to be critical, and I think that's probably where the emphasis in the coaching is this week.
I will say this, and I'm going to drop a crazy informative stat on you real quick. In fact, let's just do a little quiz. If you were to guess total defense for the Trojans, where do you think they rank nationally for total defense?
Were they 32nd?
I hate you, Jamal. How do you hit it right on the head? They're 32nd, yeah. Which is probably which is a what? Were they in the bottom hundreds last
Yeah, it was
year?
80
116.
spot improvement from 112 to 32. Yep.
And I think they would have been higher due to the Michigan game. Neither here nor there. Ryan, what are your thoughts for this week?
Yeah, I'll add 2 points. One, Minnesota's defense, I think, is a solid group. As you know, most USC will face in the Big Ten. They're fifth in total defense. Now, got to look at the competition. You know, they played Rhode Island, they played Nevada, they played North Carolina. They gave up 31 to Iowa, which I don't think anyone thinks is a powerhouse offensive school, but they still are technically the fifth total defense. They got a good defensive front, well coached, and they're always a team to battle. Then they're at home at Huntington Bank Stadium, which ironically I think is like the smallest stadium in the Big Ten. It's like a Pac-12 stadium. It's like Rice Eccles at 50,000. So not half the size of the Big House, but still a tough road game. So look at the defense. How's the offense going to come out? Got to look at that first half. We talked about it, Coach, on the live. Like you know, SC. It's been awesome seeing the fight, awesome seeing these adjustments in the second half, but can't keep coming out and getting beat badly in the first half. And I don't think Minnesota is quite at the caliber still where they have to worry too much, but you don't want that to be a trend. And then my second point, which I'll get to, is a main reason why. So got to see how this offense plays against this defense off the bat, puts points in the end zones, no turnovers, play clean. And then that alludes me to Minnesota's offense. You know, back-to-back weeks, USC's played really run-heavy offenses in Michigan and Wisconsin. Both Alex Orji and Braden Locke combined for less passing attempts than Max Brosner had last week in their game against Michigan. So clearly Minnesota's going to throw the ball around the yard more. He's obviously a much better passing quarterback than those last two guys I mentioned. So how will this secondary respond when they haven't really had to do much the last 2 weeks? And what's the preparation like from Lynn and Coach Belk and all these coaches of this week of preparation when you're going from focusing so heavy on run stopping to now focusing more on a pass attack? And, you know, that's why they get paid a lot of money and they're good coaches. And these players, why we talked in the offseason, why the secondary, I think, is a strength of this team. So, but it'll just be interesting to watch what that adjustment looks like being so different over the last, you can even go 3 weeks. Utah State with Bryson Barnes is a much more run heavy team, I think, than passing. So, yeah, those 2 points, seeing what the offense does against this top 5 ranked defense in the first half, and then really just looking at how the passing defense looks this week since they haven't really been tested since LSU.
When do they leave? Do they leave tomorrow?
Probably not. Yeah, probably tomorrow.
I hate that. I just had to ask that question, so I just have something to fall back on. I think the adjustments, though, and I kind of noticed this, I think the adjustments is that they have no coaches upstairs, so it's hard for them to adjust during the game. And I know you guys alluded to the iPads, but there's a difference between knowing right now and knowing at the end of a series. You know what I mean?
It's like as soon as the play's over, they have it.
Right, but they're not looking at it as soon as the play is over. They're all standing on the sideline trying to get the next play in. There's only, 45 seconds technically in between plays, and most snaps on average go off between about 20 seconds. So they're not looking at the iPad compared to when you have somebody upstairs and you legit say what happened on that last play. You know what I mean? Like, there's just... those are the things that I just gripe about, that I think that those are bad decisions made. Neither here nor there. The question that comes up is that they're becoming a second half team. And you could argue that Pete Carroll had them. Pete Carroll was big on fourth quarter and being a second half team. But the difference is that the dominance that they had in the first two halves, because they were so much better than everybody, there was never needed. The problem with this team is they're still, like Jamal said, Minnesota has a lot of unknowns. I think SC still has a lot of questions that need to be answered. We still do not know what this team is, and we're still trying to figure out what this team is. Is this team better than last year? Yes, we'll say this team is better than last year. Does this team have depth, which was one of the key questions? Yes, this team has depth, but the question is, what is this team? Where does this team go, and how good is this team for real? We'll find out next week when they play Penn State, but we need to figure out now, and like I said earlier, this is one of those things where they need to come out and just destroy them. Like, this is legit a time where they have to come out and they have to legit put everything up against them and put all their guns blazing up against them and set a very, very, very high standard and high precedence. And there's a lot riding on this game when you really think at it. Are they going to jump into the top 10? And like I said, what type of team are they going to be considered? The question is, how much can they handle? How much can they overcome? Because also, like me and Jamal talked about on our last show, a lot of these big teams are giving SC their very best shot in the first half. They're giving every single thing that they have in the first half. So they have to figure out how to overcome that and be very good. And they have to learn how to adjust on the fly because everybody's watching now. They're no longer hiding on the West Coast. Everybody's watching. So these are the kind of things that they look for. Ryan, you're muted. You're doing something. Jamal, you got anything on that?
No, Coach. I mean, I think it's a really good point. To Ryan's point, it's such a statistical anomaly, right, Ryan? I mean, that they're top 5 in total defense when they haven't won a Power 5 game yet this year, right? Like they're 2-3 on the season. Both their wins against non-Power 5 competition, they really were able to sort of stat pad in both of those games, both on the offensive and defensive side. So you don't really know what you have with this group, and so I think, to that point, Coach, it's really important to take care of your business because, look, the last thing you want is a competitive game going into the second half, third quarter, fourth quarter, and you get an unnecessary injury, right? God forbid. And you're sort of heading into that Penn State game, which I think that Penn State game is going to be so massive for SC's season this year in terms of just trajectory, in terms of is this a viable playoff team or not? Because I think, Coach, like we talked about a couple days ago, I think when we look back on things, I don't know if that Michigan loss is going to be a good loss. I think when we sort of look back on it, we're going to see kind of an 8-4 Michigan team. It's going to be kind of a mediocre loss. And similarly, I don't know where LSU ends up either. They've got a marquee game this week against Ole Miss, so we'll sort of have an eye on that. They still got to play Bama. They've got some tough games. You could be looking at a situation where both LSU and Michigan end up 8-4. And so as a result of that, this Penn State game coming up next week, this is the entirety of the resume in so many ways to sort of be able to justify a playoff berth. So given that, hopefully they're coming in with the right disposition to say, let's finish this early so then we can start focusing on Penn State. And B, let's not do anything more than what is necessary from an execution standpoint. You want to have everyone healthy and ready to go for that following week. So I think in that regard, this is really going to be a test more of kind of coaching and preparation is what I'm really looking for.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, well, and just to add to that defensively, in terms of injury, like no updates on Gentry or Akili Arnold. It feels, if I'm just going off a vibe, it feels like Gentry will be out this game.
Yeah, I think so too.
Which, again, you never want to sleep on an opponent, but it was probably, if he's even close, it's probably wise to save him for that, which, again, we're getting way ahead of ourselves. And then Arnold, I think, is trending more towards playing. And then same with Mekhi Lemon, no real update on him as he's kind of going through the concussion stuff. So some big names that might miss this game, which obviously is opportunity for other players. And it tests that depth that you mentioned, Coach. I think at linebacker, they've shown some good stuff, obviously with the 3, but if Gentry's not in there, probably be one of the young guys because remember now Rayshawn Davis is deciding to redshirt and come back. I think his decision, obviously very different than Bear Alexander's, his dad coming out and saying, like, we want another year with Coach Entz. So I think that was actually a good decision, but that means it's probably going to be one of the young freshmen that might be getting reps if Cobb or Mascarenas Arnold need breathers or whatnot. So got to look at that in depth. I think they got good depth at safety. And I should mention that's the reason why Anthony Beavers has moved to the linebacker room officially, I think, as opposed to more that hybrid safety. So he's also a linebacker threat there as well. So, you got to look at the health. I mean, because you want to look at Penn State, but obviously you got to get through this game first and not sleep on this Gophers team, who I think is well coached, as you guys both said, by PJ Fleck. I know Gopher fans, similar to how when we talked to Wisconsin last week, like they're up and down about their coach, but seeing where that program is, I think Fleck is an overall good coach. They just, they need to stack things, but they play hard in every game, which USC can't sleep on.
Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong. Anthony Beavers is a sophomore or a junior?
Junior, I think. Let me double check though.
I wish he had one more year because didn't he lead the team in tackles in the Holiday Bowl?
He had a great game, but I think Jalen Smith led.
He did.
Yeah,
it was Jalen Smith
led them. Yep.
Then it was like Beavers that was right.
No, Beavers
him,
was
right?
up there though for
sure.
Beavers
had a great game. He's a redshirt junior.
Oh,
So he's got one more year if he wants it.
Technically, he may have 2 if he gets the COVID year.
I think COVID years are over with now. I think last year was the last. I think.
Oh,
last year was
okay.
the last class that got the COVID year, I think.
Okay. The reason why I said that is because just touch on that Beavers thing, Rick, and I completely forgot. We also had a commitment too, so we completely botched that. We should let the show with that. Sorry, guys. I think Anthony Beavers can have a successful career in the NFL as a linebacker. The way the game has changed, he's long, he's rangy. I don't think there will be a difference in size with Gentry because Gentry has a long wingspan and Gentry's like 7'9". But I think Beavers and Gentry play similar to each other, and it's a plus now because Beavers can also cover. And so by him covering, you put yourself in a little bit situation in third downs or those pass downs. I think that move is pretty good. I wish so. He's a redshirt junior, so he has one more year next year. So he has a chance to come back and probably be a starter at that spot and give him a chance to get drafted middle rounds, like 3rd through 5 maybe, and stick on a squad and have a good, successful career. And that helps us out tremendously on defense, and especially scheme-wise. You know what I mean? I don't think anybody will be able to block him coming off the edge once he learns how to do it. That's the key word, once he learns how to do it. Like, you can't just run off the edge. There's a little bit of technique. Not a little bit. There's some technique to it. But I think that's a good move, and that just shows the depth. It kind of gives like a Dodgers vibe to it, how all these dudes could play different positions and have a chance to be successful at it. You know what I mean? Creating depth that way. So I kind of like that move that they made. So I saw that earlier too. And I think that move is very good. I feel like when we did our depth chart show, I said that's the guy we should move to linebacker. I could be wrong. I did, Jamal?
Yeah, I remember you saying that.
Yeah, so they are watching. They are listening. What up, Coach Henny? So, no, I think that's a very good spot for him because
he was a team captain without even playing last week, really.
Yeah, because of his speed and because of his way he could cover. It expands the defense a little bit more. I feel safer with him in coverage than I do in Gentry. How do you guys feel about that move? That's a good transition, Ryan. What would we do without you? How do you guys feel about the Beavers move? We'll start with Jamal and then we'll go back to Ryan.
Yeah, I really like it. I mean, again, there's the depth at linebacker, right, moving forward after this season is, a question. And obviously, we've done a nice job with recruiting, but you want to be able to build that pipeline. I think what's often lost in translation is not just that the 3 top linebackers are all leaving next year, but if 8 of the top 9 tacklers on USC's team are all leaving after this year, so there's going to be a significant amount of turnover on that defensive side. So you definitely want the opportunity to have guys kind of slot in. And, Gentry and Cobb and Mascarenas Arnold have been so good this year that I think the opportunity for Beavers to kind of get some tutelage under those guys, number one, and understand how well to do that position in this particular Danton Lynn scheme, I think is really a strength, and then be able to kind of come back and take that learning and then activate it with potentially a Rayshawn Davis and some of the other recruits. So I really like it. I think, we've talked a lot about how deep this secondary room is. And is there even room for more guys? You're sort of at 11, 12, 13 deep at times. So to move Beavers to linebacker where he can make a bigger impact and his sort of body type is more conducive to the position, I think is a really nice opportunity.
Yeah. You're muted, Coach, but
I was about to say, Ryan, go ahead, but I couldn't get. That's like at
anyway.
work, like when you're in a meeting. Oh, I need to unmute. Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, I don't need to add much more. I think you guys said it, but yeah, he seems like obviously, like I said, he was a team captain last week, and he's not even a starter. So I think that says what his teammates, what his coaches think about him. Obviously versatile, does everything right in practice. Both Dan Lynn and Lincoln Riley talked about him of just being a guy that players look up to. Everyone absolutely loves because of the way he practices, the way he prepares, and whatnot. So, I think it's a good move. 6'1", 215. So he's got kind of that prototypical linebacker size. Maybe the elite ones are a little taller, but at the college level, he can for sure play well at 6'1", and certainly has the frame at 215, but has, like you said, more speed and coverage ability, which in today's college game, but certainly in the NFL too, like gone are the days of the old school run stuffing linebacker. Like, you got to be able to cover and move side to sideline. So he can really make a name for himself as he's able to get some reps. And this could be a week, like we said, if Gentry is out, he could certainly get some actual big game time reps this week, which I'd love to see. So yeah, I think it's a good move. You have the ability to move him back if need to, God forbid any injuries happen, but it makes sense with where that linebacker room's at, and hopefully he'll be back next year because, as you guys said, losing all 3 starters at that spot. So him and Rayshawn Davis with a couple sophomores and a couple freshmen next year, but we'll get to that in a year.
Yeah, we'll stay on you. We'll go to our LAFB recruiting expert. The bat signal is out. It rang across all of social media. It's going to make our Sooner fans upset because of the flip. We got a commitment in, or let's go to our recruiting expert, LAFB recruiting expert, Ryan Dyru. Ryan, tell us about that commitment.
Yeah, Floyd Boucard, Canadian, but he lives in Florida, plays out of Miami Central, down there, defensive lineman, 6'3", 215. So, nice prototypical interior nose tackle size. Official visit in June. I think we talked about him after that visit. It was the big weekend when everyone was out in June. And the sentiment was he was looking to commit then. I mean, it was real high, good visit. I think we even talked on the show, like he might be one of the ones that the bat signals was for. Ended up committing to Oklahoma in July. And then I always mix but a week or two ago, decommitted from Oklahoma. And then now officially committed to SC today and shut down his recruitment. Officially said, like, this is it. Recruitment shut down. I think he was maybe going to have another visit, turn that down. And I thought the one interesting thing that I read, and certainly Coach Henney deserves credit. He brought up Coach Henney, got to know him well, excited to play for him. He coached, Aaron Donald. Like, he said all the things that everyone kind of says about him and loves him. But he really pointed to his relationship with Lincoln Riley over recruiting and said he talked to Lincoln Riley the most of all the coaches almost every day. Once he committed to Oklahoma, him and Lincoln Riley were like on speed dial talking all the time. So I thought that was really cool because we know Lincoln Riley is a good recruiter, but obviously on the defensive side, he's not a guy that gets talked about because he's the offensive QB guru. But here he is going after this 3-star, 4-star on some sites defensive lineman, and he was the main guy pushing for him to get across the finish line. So I thought that was cool for all those, especially it fit even better, guys, that it was an Oklahoma flip, considering Oklahoma says Lincoln Riley doesn't care about defense. And here he was going all in on a defensive player in the trenches.
What do you got, Matt, man?
No, not too much more to add. I think it shows that, Lincoln Riley, it still matters. The narrative, of him leaving Oklahoma, so much has been made about the Oklahoma fans' reaction to Lincoln Riley leaving, but we've rarely talked about how Lincoln Riley has felt about that reaction. And so when you hear about things like this, it shows there's still a fire there, and it's still kind of TBD who ends up winning that transaction. And so certainly Lincoln Riley wants to be on the upper hand there. But I think, Boucard's a great get. I think at, 305 at this stage in his career and at his age is really significant. You want to be able to have that girth on the interior, and then you kind of shape him with strength and conditioning, as we've seen over the last 12 months. So again, it's about being stout on that defensive line. And so I think this is a great get. And I think Lincoln Riley's starting to understand the value of not just edge presence, but, interior alignment. And I think this behavior also sort of complements a little bit of what he said earlier in the week about Big Ten officiating. And Coach, we talked about this a couple days ago where he said, look, they call it a much looser game than they did in the Pac-12. Now it's our job to adjust and be more physical. So I think there's sort of a mentality of that the rest of this season, but also in terms of your recruiting, in terms of how can you get guys that just naturally are more physical and can play that style in a more comprehensive fashion. So all great things all around.
So 24/7 hasn't. So when it came around, and correct me if I'm wrong, when it came out, it said he was a 4-star recruit, right? This guy's a 4-star.
I think he's 3 on some, 4 on some.
Yeah, so they got him.
I know Rivals has him at 4. Yeah.
Okay, so 24/7 has him as 3, and they have him at 315. So his weight is truly about 310, 307. It's one of those things. all these things. The thing I like about him is he's come from Miami Central High School, and the good thing about that is the rumor is when you go to public school in Miami, you don't get the coaching to just roll the ball out there and play. But all those dudes have great athletic ability, right? I looked at his film, and that dude has a burst, and that dude is pretty good, and he looks like he's very well coached. He looks like he's already very fluid with his hands. That's a plus. They have him playing deep. That's the only worry I have. They have him playing on the edge on the highlight films that I saw, and it's a little bit different inside. It's pretty loud inside. You know what I mean? Like, he's just bigger and better than everybody, so he's able to play the edge, but you're not bigger and better than everybody when you go up there at the beginning. You're not bigger and better than everybody, but you will become bigger and better. So more depth, like you said, on the defense line. Another recruit in the books that's to make the defense better and make the team better. Let's flip it back over to Minnesota. We covered that stuff. I wanted to talk to you guys real quick. We'll wrap it up with this, and then we'll get score predictions, and we'll get out of here. Jamal got to get some rest. I want to talk to you about, what do you think the defense? We're not going to look at the number 5 rank, but Wisconsin's defense wasn't that great, but they still were able to give the Trojans' offensive line some fits. I'm going to chop it up to lack of experience. And now that I'm looking at it, I feel like this offensive line of being really good is about next year, 2 years away. 2 years away, this offensive line could be really good. That'll be with Julian Lewis. These dudes will be juniors. And we'll have sophomores who no, I don't know. 2 years away. We'll just put it like that. I don't have time to do all the math in my hand. But do you think that Minnesota is good enough up front to put Miller Moss under duress, which our good Ryan Dyru put out a tweet last week. Not last week, this week. He retweeted it. Michigan game, he was under pressure 57% of the time. And then against Wisconsin, it went down to 29%.
I don't know if I tweet. Well, yeah, something like that.
You
Yeah.
retweeted that.
Okay. Yeah, it was half. Yeah.
Yeah, so there is some improvement, but I also think it's because Lincoln Riley is spreading out a little bit more, so it keeps him from being under duress. But do you think that this defensive line is good enough to keep Miller Moss under duress, or do you think the problem is fixed, or we won't see it this week? Go ahead, Matt, man.
You know, Coach, it's an interesting question. I would sort of flip it in the sense that, to your point of what do we really have at USC, I think we're going to feel really good about this game walking away from Minnesota and thinking of this team more from a contention standpoint, not necessarily how much Miller Moss is on his back or not, which obviously is important every game. This is a Woody Marks game for me, because I think that at 334 yards on the season, Marks has had some flashes. 4 games, he's at 200 yards out of the 4. But really, it's kind of been 100-yard game because, he finished with exactly 100 against Michigan, and one run was 65 yards, and then he was kind of 12 for 35 in all the other carries. So this is a game to me, Coach, where I want to see Woody Marks go over 100 yards rushing. That's what would tell me that this offensive line is starting to grow and progress. Because if the conversation is around, hey, how well did this offensive line protect Miller Moss? And that's what's going to be the determinant in this game. There's kind of an implication there that SC wasn't able to run the ball very effectively. And it was a little bit more one-dimensional. So to me, success in this game is not just keeping Miller Moss upright, but I'm looking for balance here. I'm looking for a game where you've got Miller Moss in that 26 to 30 attempts. And I think you're running the ball 25 to 30 times. And I think if you're able to do that, I think that's mission accomplished for this offensive line and gives us a lot of hope going against the likes of the Penn States and the Notre Dames down the line. But if this is swaying to Miller Moss having another kind of 40-plus attempt game and you're sort of under 20 attempts on the ground, that to me is a little bit of a cause for concern because it shows that offensive line isn't necessarily opening up the holes for the run game, and we're forced to throw more than we want. So I'm looking at balance as really the heuristic for success with the offensive line this week.
What do you think, Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just piggyback off that because if you look at, again, we know that this top 5 ranking is a little bit of a misnomer, but when you just look at what they're better at, their pass defense versus their rush defense. I mean, you look at the 4 teams ahead of them. Tennessee has allowed 50 yards rushing per game. Ohio State, 61. Missouri, 91. Penn State, who USC has next week, 72. Minnesota, 130 on the ground. So clearly their strength is in their pass defense and their weaknesses in their rush defense. So I think that shows that SC should be able to do a bit more damage on the ground. And if they can't, then that's where, like Jamal's saying, that assessment of like, okay, is this really a team that can rush as it's constructed right now, or is this a bigger issue? And not saying Minnesota can't have a good rush defensive game, but that's what they need to attack because, they're going to be tough sledding against some of the other teams. And so if they can attack that against Minnesota, it'll free things up for the play action of Miller Moss and not put so much pressure on him. And because he has taken hits to the head, you would like to see some pressure off that. So yeah, I'd love to see Woody Marks. Quentin Joyner's looked fantastic. He's more of a bit more of a bruiser, and the biggest bruiser, Brian Jackson, the true freshman. So if they can get all 3 of those guys involved, and if this offensive line can get some push and create some holes like they did at times against Wisconsin, it wasn't all 60 minutes, but at times they did look good in the run game. That would be, I think, ideal and what the game plan that we want to see.
Yeah, I'm looking up an interesting stat here. I'm opening drives on offense, which is very unique to a Lincoln Riley offense. So LSU, they had a punt, settle for a field goal with Utah State. Michigan, they punt, and a touchdown with Wisconsin last week. So they've only scored 9 points in 4 games on their opening drives, compared to probably that would have been 28 points in prior seasons, give or take, with Lincoln Riley's offense. It's just the adjustment I guess we're going through. But I don't know. I think Jamal's calling out Woody Marks because we got that little competition going, saying who's the better transfer running back, and he's big on Marshawn Lloyd. I'm a Woody Marks guy. But you're right though. The run game needs to be established. And he's trying to prove that he can establish a run game. So if they're trying to establish a running game, they do need to do a lot better in establishing the run game. The problem is that he abandons it so fast when it doesn't work that I do think this about Woody. I think Woody he gets stronger as the game goes along, and he never gets into a rhythm. And Lincoln Riley, in this learning process, needs to figure out how to get the running back into a rhythm for him to really go. You know what I mean? And I could be wrong. I didn't really dig deep into numbers, and maybe I should before I say that. But from what I see, I should say it in this way. From what I see, they don't really get into a rhythm. They'll get 2 runs, and all of a sudden they'll pass for 5 and then want to start running again. Like they never get that flow going. And so those things kind of change it. And I know before you say it, Ryan, we know that their screen game and those flat routes are an addition to the run game, but I'm just talking pure handoffs, pure power, pure inside zone. Those types of things really need to be taken care of. So, yeah, we'll see. Let's give Woody 135 yards, and so I can be like, Jamal, I think Woody's coming for your boy Marshawn Lloyd.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
Let's throw it around the horn real quick. Let's get it out of here so we can get Jamal to get him a little cat nap just in case he's in store to work the night shift tonight. Let's get final scores. Opening lines 9.5. We know the Trojans don't travel very well. That 9.5 sits right with me. Ryan, what do you think the score is going to be?
Yeah, I think being on the road always changes things a little bit. Haven't played this team since 2011. Only 8 matchups, guys, with Minnesota. 6-1-1 the Trojans are against Minnesota. But I think you go on the road, it's always a little different atmosphere, new stadium, new environment that none of these players have played in before. It's not like going to a team you played. So I think there'll be some of that, some sluggishness. Hopefully they bounce out of it quicker in the first half. But I do think they win by 10. Last week, what did I say? 31-14 over Wisconsin. I think they get to 30 again, pull away in the fourth quarter. So I'll go 35-17. I think Brosmer will have a better game because they throw it a bit more, but I'll go 35-17.
Man, what do you got here?
Yeah, I think similar. I think It'll be important to sort of have that balance to keep Minnesota, guessing and play honest defensively. And I think that, if they're able to do that, and again, get out in front, right? I mean, the challenge with not so much from a preparation standpoint, but the challenges with some of these bigger more physical Big Ten teams is when you fall behind, you're allowing them to play at their pace and their tempo. They can keep running the ball. They can keep chewing clock. They can keep leveraging play action in the short passing game. They don't have that pressure of needing to go vertical, needing to score quickly. You saw how quickly the game changed when SC was able to get a couple drives in a row. And the moment Wisconsin fell behind last week, the floodgates really opened in terms of turnovers and some erratic plays. So that's why it's so important to kind of get out in front. I think Minnesota will stay close for a while. Ultimately, though, SC pulls away. I think it's going to be 34-20. The final, we'll have a couple field goals here from the special teams and 34-20 heading into Penn State week.
I'm going to be optimistic, and the Trojans are going to roll into Penn State feeling good. I see 35-10.
Love it.
Yeah.
Okay.
All of us have 35, 35, 34. So high-scoring game.
35-10, optimistic. They're going to roll into Penn State feeling good, healthy, get all their starters back that they need to get back. Hopefully, Kurt Herbstreit, Reese Davis, Desmond Howard, Pat McAfee, Nick Saban, and Lee Corso are sitting in University Quad doing their show on the 12th. It's close to see. I feel like, they're in Cal this week. I don't know how they pick Cal in Miami. That makes no sense to me. But it's either
Cal, one of the 5 schools that has yet to host a game day until Saturday. So
really, oh,
yes,
that's where
Coach,
they fit.
Really,
it doesn't make sense because Aaron Rodgers years they should have been up there because those teams are pretty good. But
Saban had quite the line. He's like, man, this is the most Cal has been relevant in football since Aaron Rodgers was pro day. So
yeah,
so true. And they even had Jared Goff after that.
Yeah,
that's true. And they have some good running backs.
Oh yeah,
yeah, oh yeah,
yeah. Javed Best,
yep,
Marshawn Lynch,
totally.
JJ, not JJ. Yeah, his name was JJ Arrington, right?
Yeah, JJ Arrington. Yep.
Yeah. JJ Arrington. Forsett. Yeah. Oh no, it's either us or Oregon and Ohio State. It has to be Penn State, USC, or Oregon and Ohio State. No.
Also Texas, Oklahoma.
But Texas, Oklahoma is not. It's not.
It should be the 2 you said first, not because we're biased, but because Texas and Oklahoma play every year, and these are like new matchups. Like USC, Penn State, it's like so. Obviously, we'll see it more, but those are just newfound rivalries. Whereas Red River rivalry is one of the great rivalries, but it's every year. So
does Big Noon kickoff there has been times where Big Noon kickoff and college games has been in the same place at the same time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But Big Noon is only there when they're broadcasting the 9 a.m. game. So like they were at USC Colorado because SC was the 9 a.m. That was the 9 a.m. game on Fox.
I got you. Okay.
Hard for me to fathom that it won't be Ohio State, Oregon. I mean, you're talking about a potential, certainly a top 10 matchup, or maybe even a top 5 matchup there, so that feels like the one.
It's crazy because it could be what 1 versus 5 Ohio State, Oregon, and then 6 versus 8 Penn State, USC.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's unfortunate. It's also who gets the game too.
CBS has it already.
The Penn State. Oh, they do already have the Penn State.
I think they already announced it, right?
It's a 12:30. That was a miss. It would have been great to have that one 5 p.m. at the Collie.
The school doesn't control it. The TV.
I know, but I'm saying that was a miss by the network.
They don't do any 5 o'clock games on CBS.
I'm saying it doesn't have to sort of be. Oh, it could even have been 8 p.m. Frankly.
You're saying that CBS needs to start doing their games at the right time.
Yeah, 12:30. Nighttime at the Collie. That's when the big games are.
Yeah, definitely. Well, gentlemen, it's been fun. We got another one coming up this Saturday. That's the good thing about football. You get a new week and a new opportunity to prove yourself. and shut everybody up from what happens last week. What have you done for me lately? We need the Trojans to be very impressive. A win probably puts them in the top 10. It's probably going to put them right at 10, maybe. We'll see how everything else falls out, but the win's going to put them right at 10, or they'll be in the top 10, and they're moving forward. We just got to keep progressing. Madman, Ryan, it's been a real one. Fans, it's been a real one. Thank you, everybody, for watching. It's a BetOnline Salute Detroit podcast. Go to betonline.ag where the game starts. Go to Underdog Fantasy app, or UnderdogFantasy.com. Put in promo code USC LAFB, and you get a $100 match. It's been real, guys. You guys know how it goes. Live free. Fight on.